It is May 21st, 3 p.m. and we are live. Welcome to the Future Rideshare Millionaire Podcast. Every week, I share how much money I made the previous week, and we'll also talk about some news as it pertains to the rideshare community. There's been some pretty big news surrounding Minneapolis that we're going to cover. I'm going to share my thoughts, some of my predictions that I made in the past, some of the talking points that I've maintained over time now that this thing is finally settled. There are going to be some winners. There are going to be some losers. We're going to see where drivers fit into that. We're going to see where Uber and Lyft fit into that. We're going to see where passengers fit into that. And we're going to see where what this means for the broader rideshare market moving forward. So we're going to discuss a couple of those things. But I will warn you, I'm a little disorganized today, not as organized as I usually am. So bear with me as I get my ish together. Thanks. And so first thing I want to do is I want to pull up my Lyft app so I can show you guys how much I made last week. Didn't drive a bunch, but I did pretty good for what I did drive. I slacked off on the weekend. Friday, Saturday, I didn't really go out and drive. And it shows in the numbers, but it's okay. We'll make up for it. And after I show you guys how much I made, I will show you what other drivers in America made across different cities. So if you have a city that you want me to look at, drop it into the comments and maybe I'll take a look at it if I have time. We should have time. There's not too many topics that we're going to discuss today, but the topics that we will talk about, we'll try to go in depth with them. And I did do a little bit of Uber last week. And honestly, so like I know it's market dependent between Uber and Lyft, which one might make you more money. But I think that objectively speaking, Lyft has better tools than Uber. And I don't think that anyone can dispute that. I think that if you just want to turn an app on and go and drive, Uber is probably the best app for you. But if you are trying to like maximize your time, maximize your income based off of the tools that are provided, granted market dependent, but I think that Lyft just has so much better tools. And maybe we'll talk about a couple of them. I'm trying to pull up my app and it's not being friendly to me right now. Being very slow. It's not connecting with my phone. So let's see. I might have to skip it for now and just start talking about some news items. I hope I don't have to do that. I'd rather just get through this. All right, give me a second, guys. I'm not having a good time right now. It doesn't want to work. Here we go. Try one more time. If I can't get it to work on this one more time, I'm just gonna have to move on. Yeah, I can't get it to work. Man. All right, so I'll probably have to save that until next week. We'll just have to talk about whatever news has been circulating. I don't have everything that I want organized. All right, so this is where we're going to start. I'll go through if I can get it to work at the end of the stream. I'll go through what other drivers made last week, as well as what I made last week. But for now, we are just going to go through some of the news. The biggest news of the week is Minneapolis to drop rideshare minimum wage plan. Look to future council member says. So we'll read through this and then I'll share some thoughts that I've had this entire time. I've been covering this for months, been covering it since last year, since this whole thing started rolling. Pretty much since I started my podcast, I've been talking about this topic and I've made some takes that people didn't like. And we can review those takes in comparison to what's going to happen on January 1st. So the Minneapolis City Council was poised to pass its own rideshare minimum wage later this week. However, now that it would soon be void, Councilmember Robin Wansley, a months-long proponent for the proposal, said on Monday that the vote expected Thursday is off the table. Okay, so when they say Thursday, they mean 2 days from now. Today's Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday. So apparently, something could change between now and then, but as we read more, you'll understand why that's not likely to happen. So Wansley said she's proud of that a statewide rideshare policy passed, but disappointed that the city level work she supported for months is rendered moot by a preemption built into the deal state lawmakers Governor Tim Walz made with Uber and Lyft Saturday night. So let me clarify that for you guys. Minneapolis, the city of Minneapolis, which is in Minnesota, they had their own law for rideshare drivers that they had been working on. They wanted to pay drivers $1.40 per mile and 50 something cents per minute. I did not agree with the $1.40 per mile. I think that it was too high and that it would have a negative impact on the drivers. If you disagree, then you disagree, that's fine. But what the state did was preemption. That means that they overruled it. So they came out with their own law. And in that law, it says that the city is not able to make decisions for TNC providers on what the pay rates and that should be. So I'm not a fan of that, right? I am not a fan, even though I disagree with the $1.40 that the city council won, right? They did it the correct way. They followed the laws and they won it for better or worse. I'm not a fan of the state invalidating what they want through this tactic because it kind of makes it feel like, what was the point? I don't want to wash away the point, right? They obviously benefited from what they did and they got it to exist on a state level, but it's not what they fought for, even though I disagree with what they were fighting for. And I just feel like it's a loser's race, right? I feel like here we are, we won, but because we won, you wanted to go and change the rules on us. So I'm not a fan of that from a government perspective. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I'm not a fan of how they treated this council, even though I didn't agree with what the council was pushing for, right? They said that $1.40 was supposed to be the equivalent of $15.50 per hour for drivers, and it didn't work out that way. I've done the math on that. But it was brought to my attention that some drivers don't care if it accurately represents minimum wage. They only care that drivers are getting paid more, which is important, right? Now, there has to be some kind of like give and take with it because you don't want to disrupt supply and demand too much. But we're not really going to know how supply and demand will be affected until January. But we'll keep reading. So it says, we're talking about 10,000 drivers now who are going to benefit from these protections. So this is literally one of the best policies in the country. And I'm very proud that the council took the action that we did in passing this policy and being responsive to the needs of drivers, Wansley said. So while I'm proud about that component, I'm absolutely disappointed in the fact that Governor Tim Walz essentially placated Uber and Lyft by preempting Minneapolis and removing our local authority to set regulations on companies like Uber and Lyft going forward. So that's kind of the caveat, and I think this is why Uber and Lyft bent to this new law, right? So I think the article will talk about it a little more, but I kind of agree here with Wansley, right? This is the first time that I've agreed with her as far as it goes with Uber and Lyft. But they worked really hard to get this thing passed, and Governor Tim Walz was just trying to override it. I mean, he has his reasons. Some people are going to say he's in the pocket of Uber and Lyft, but the real reality here is, if you want to make a change with something, I think that all parties should be involved in the talks. And when it came to Molda and the city council, they weren't including Uber and Lyft in those talks. Even if Uber and Lyft disagree, that's fine. But like all parties need to be at the table. And I'm not going to just say that Governor Tim Walz is in the pocket of Uber and Lyft. Governor Tim Walz has a job in which he has to make sure that the TNC providers are taken care of, the passengers are taken care of, and the drivers are taken care of. I think it's responsible to include everyone in those conversations. Is he being paid by Uber and Lyft? Maybe. Who knows? It's a possibility. Stranger things have happened. It's not uncommon for some government officials, to be in that light. But I don't think that should be the first thing we jump at. I don't think that's the first thing we should think of. We should be like, okay, this guy's job is to make sure everything works for everybody and in a way that makes sense, right? So that's kind of the first place I go, and I think it's lazy just to assume, oh, they're all paid off. It's a little lazy in that whole department. Let's move forward. So Uber and Lyft driver and vice president of the Minnesota Uber and Lyft Drivers Association, Marina Brown, was amongst the Capitol chaos in the Senate chambers as the pay raise passed in the final moments of the legislative session. As you can see, my voice is a product of screaming last night. We were jumping for joy, she shared with a much more raspy voice than normal. The final deal set the minimum wage at $1.28 per mile and 31 cents per minute. Now, I'm going to pull up some receipts of what I have been supporting since this thing started, right? We're going to going over to Twitter because I've been sharing my micro thoughts over on Twitter. If you want to follow me, interact with me, there's a bunch of drivers over there. They're always sharing different things that, if you want to be in the news of rideshare, this is a good place to be. My handle is Tristan Thomas YT. And there's some good stuff over here. But I recently reshared some of the takes that I've made over the last few months. Let's see if I can find them. This looks like old stuff. Where's my oh, this is my old account. All right, here we go. Just go over here. Oh, Twitter is so weird. I've been having some issues with Twitter, but we still figure it out. Let me try something else. Tristan Thomas YT. This is going to be annoying. Okay, here it is. Here we go. So for the first thing I did, I did some math on it. So the original rate that they wanted was the $1.40, and the rate that the mayor of Minneapolis supported, that Uber and Lyft also supported before there was a statewide survey on what drivers make, what drivers should be paid. They supported this $1.17 plan, but the council didn't want that. The council was like 140 or nothing. But when I did the math, I added them together and found the average of the two. And I think that's how they literally just met in the middle, right? So city council in Molda wanted $1.40 per mile. Uber and Lyft previously agreed on $1.17 before the survey came out. And if you do the math, look at the middle, it's $1.28, which is how much they're going to be paid per mile starting January 1st. Like I said, looks like they decided to meet dead center in the middle. Sergio did respond to this, saying that it's not as simple as it looks. Got to read the fine print. And he said he's going to talk more about it on their live, which is going to happen after mine at 6 p.m. So, we'll see if he has any extra information that can dissuade me from thinking that, they didn't just try to meet in the middle here. And then, so this is proof, right? I got the receipts. This is from November. Mayor Frey said that he got the rideshare companies to agree with Model B. Model B is the $1.17 per mile, which he has openly supported, right? And I said that Model B looks like a much better model than Model A. I'm a very strong proponent that Government should move in increments because if they make too much of a change too quickly, it can have unintended consequences, right? And a lot of people don't think that that exists, but so yes, we have seen wage floors created in different places like Seattle and New York, and they seem to be working under those systems. But we have seen where it's not one to one, but it is adjacent, where DoorDash increased their wages and is not working based off of the supply and demand in Seattle. So I think that there are levels to it. Obviously, I don't think anyone who's listening to me that disagrees with what I'm saying can believe that we can increase wages to whatever we want without having a repercussion, right? We can just make it $5 per mile and there won't be any negative repercussions. There comes a time where everyone, even those who disagree with me, will probably believe that increasing the wage to this to XYZ level is going to have a negative impact on overall earnings, right? So for me, I think that 117 was the better place to start so that, if it does have a negative impact, at least it's not too negative. And if it works, right, and everyone's happy, then you can reconsider the next step, right? I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's unreasonable. So I said this was long before the state study. Now that the state study is here, Lyft lowballed and no longer agrees with the $1.17. They want the 89 cents that the study says. So when the study came out, it said that, all right, a driver needs to make 89 cents per minute in Minneapolis in order to qualify for what would be considered minimum wage of $15.50. Now, I'm not a fan of Uber and Lyft agreeing to the $1.17 before the study came out. And then when the study came out, they went back and said, nah, we're just going to do the 89 cents. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think it's an honorable position to take. I get where they are as a business. It's in their best interest to lowball as much as possible. But if I were the leader, I would say, no, we said we're going to do this. So let's honor this. And then for a couple of weeks, they were saying, hey, if it's not 89 cents, we're going to leave. And then rides came out. And then there was a very quick turn of what was agreeable. So I don't think it's unreasonable to believe that competition in this market played a role in Uber and Lyft making a decision. But I think that one of the biggest factors for Uber and Lyft staying is the fact that they were able to preempt through the state so that cities couldn't come up with varying pricing models. I don't know why that's so important to them, but it is something that we should be paying attention to. So as Sergio said from the Rideshare guy, there probably is more to this than what's in front of our face. I haven't had the time to look deeply into the law that was passed, and I will. So I think that there will be more about this that comes out. Someone said on Twitter, usually when Uber and Lyft agree to something, it's because there's a benefit in there for them, and I want to see what that benefit is, right? So just a little recap here. There were three models that they were contemplating. Model A was a minimum compensation rate of $1.40 per mile and 51 cents per minute. That's what the main thing was for a while. Model B was a compensation rate of $1.17 per mile, 34 cents per minute. And Model C was a flat rate of 24 per hour, applied only during the time on the way to pick up a rider during the time transporting a rider. Not really a fan of that. I feel like this could be taken advantage of pretty easily. I supported this, but it seems like we're somewhere in the middle. They said we're gonna do model A.5 is what they ended up agreeing to. So I think that we're gonna continue going through the story before I share more about like my thoughts on who's winning, who's losing here. So it says it's less than the policy that Minneapolis was poised to approve, but Brown will settle for the 20% pay raise that got Uber and Lyft on board too. We deserve it. We deserve a livable wage, she said, adding, we deserve to treat our family to a meal and not worry that, can I pay this bill after this meal? We deserve that. I don't really opt. This is kind of not really rideshare. This is like general financial concept that I'm about to talk about. But I don't. What does deserve mean? I don't really understand that concept. I know that I just know numbers, right? If I have money to take my family out and pay my bills, then I have money to take my family out and pay my bills. I don't think that being able to take your family to a restaurant is like something people deserve to do. It's something that you just do based off of your financial situation. And rideshare in certain markets isn't working. Rideshare in certain markets are working. Rideshare in certain markets work, but the people who are doing the rideshare, they're not running their business effectively, and it plays a role. I don't think we should be passing laws with the idea that we need to make sure people are paid enough to take their families out to dinner. That's not, you know, I don't think rideshare should generally be a minimum wage conversation. But Wansley, who where this quote comes from, was pushing for a minimum wage for drivers. So she's saying that minimum wage for drivers should entail the ability to take your family out for dinner and pay your bills after that meal. I don't. That's like a weird way to phrase it, and I don't know. I just think that there is a better analogy to use here. Maybe I don't know. You know, I don't know. It's weird. I'm gonna sleep on it and see how I feel about it. Brown expressed some worry over Uber's stated intention to also raise the rates riders will pay as a result. I'm not too concerned about this anymore. Well, for starters, right? If you increase the minimum payments for something, it should be expected that that money comes from somewhere, right? You might say that Uber has all the money in the world. They don't. They're not doing very well. Neither is Lyft. Lyft is doing worse than Uber, and it could be their fault, right? I'm not saying that it's the result of the market. It could be just bad decision making, bad leadership, whatever. But it I get upset when government officials want to increase wages without expecting prices to go up, right? That when you're involved with the city planning and you're involved with making rules, it is important to understand the blowback of the decisions that you're making, whether intentional or unintentional, right? You have to be aware of these things. So yes, I expressed her worry over Uber's stated intention to also raise the rates. That's probably what's going to happen. However, we do know that alternative rideshare platforms have been popping up. Now, we did see in Austin years ago that Uber and Lyft just kind of priced the competition out of the market. I don't know if they'll be able to do that here. I really do hope rides will succeed here. We'll talk more about rides after this article about the alternative rideshare options. I even have rides in my city, and I'm going to share with you how much they pay per mile. So we'll see that. Explaining the expected increase on Sunday, Uber's Senior Director for Policy and Communications, Josh Gold, said the cost of providing a ride is going up, adding that the increased rate for riders is going to be substantial, but it's going to be much less than it would have been if Minneapolis ordinance went into effect. Maybe. I know that so this law that passed is for the entire state of Minnesota. So the entire state drivers will make at minimum, not maximum, not on average, at minimum, $1.28 per mile. The ordinance that was for Minneapolis was just for the city, was just for the Twin Cities, you know? So they would have had to pay 140 for the city, but everywhere else in the state would have, I think they're getting paid like 89 cents on average right now, or maybe a little less, which isn't great, but they wouldn't have to pay $1.29 for everyone. So I'm curious to see how that works out in their books. I feel like there's something here that's not obvious that is going to benefit Uber that's not being said. That's just my gut feeling. I feel like there's something here that I'm missing because I haven't looked too deeply into it. So earlier this year, Uber posted its first full year in the black since going public in 2019 with nearly $2 billion in reported profit. I stand corrected. They have some money. They could cover it, Brown insisted. Remember, Uber is just an app. The drivers buy the car, they provide the gas, they provide everything. So like, I'm in the middle. I feel. I believe companies are important. I believe the workers are important. I believe the customers are important. And again, these politicians have to remember that these companies are for the profit, right? And that there's unfortunate consequences of that, and there are fortunate benefits to it, right? There's both of these things, and it's, to me, it's unreasonable to expect a company not to be focused on profit, because that's what they do. You know, these companies exist to make money. Now, there are levels to it, right? You can still take advantage of it. But like this article has said, this is the first time Uber has been profitable for an extended period of time since it's came out. So there's and that's not a straightforward statement either, right? Companies can kind of choose to be profitable or not, in the sense that they can keep reinvesting money and it will show that they're not making a profit, right? When they could, if they do cuts, which is what Uber and Lyft have been trying to do. They were warned that they're not going to get as much investor money and that they actually needed to start showing profitability. So they made some cuts. That's just how it goes. So Wanzi said she's not done proposing rideshare related ordinances and that she'll soon be looking into the cost for rideshare companies to get licensed in the city, which is over 30,000. She reported it's a pretty substantial fee. I agree that that fee is way too high. They should lower it, and that's for just like one city. If you want to do Minneapolis, that's about 30 grand. If you want to do St. Paul, which is where the airport is, that's another 30 grand. So if you want to operate in the two main cities, which they call the Twin City, um, that's 60 grand right there. And we don't even talk about how much it costs to be licensed in the state. We haven't talked about how much it's going to cost to be licensed in varying cities around Minnesota. So I do think that trying to get this fee down is in the best interest of drivers and passengers. So, but not in the best interest of Uber and Lyft. But we don't care about them. We we want Uber and Lyft to survive long enough for us to take advantage of them, but we also don't want them to get in the way of better options for drivers, right? So, like if Uber and Lyft filed for bankruptcy today, it would suck because I use them to make money. You use them to make money, and I know that there are some YouTubers out there, some drivers out there who they hate Uber and Lyft so much that they're willing to like they're okay with Uber and Lyft suffering, even if it causes them to suffer. And I'm not that type of person. I'm not trying to set my life behind um, to stick it to the man or to stick it to Uber and Lyft. No, I'm here to make money. And the thing that helps me make the most money is the thing that I'm going to use. Right. So, yes, I do want alternatives to pop up. And I want this to set a precedent for what can happen. And that's why I'm kind of, someone said to me, it shouldn't matter too much to us because we don't live there or I don't live there. But it does matter, right? You could have said that about New York, but New York spread to Seattle. Seattle spread to Minneapolis. This is going to start spreading more and more and more. We're going to see different types of models come out. I am in favor of an alternative popping up that puts more money in my pocket. I'm in favor of that. I don't mind that. That's what I want. I don't have allegiances to Uber. I don't have allegiances to Lyft. Those are just the things that currently make me the most money in my market. So I want them to stay. But I am also okay with a competitor popping up as long as that competitor is similar in payouts or better, right? And until that happens, I don't really want Uber and Lyft to leave. And I don't think that's an unreasonable take either. The plan, she said, would be in response to the startup companies beginning to set up shop in the last couple of months amid the uncertainty over the future of Uber and Lyft in Minneapolis. We want to be able to make sure that small businesses can also exist in this market. As for the new statewide minimum wage, that's set to go into effect on Jan 1st, 2025. So they have to wait, what is it? 7 more months, 6 months and a couple weeks in order for this to go into effect. So until then, they're going to still be making under like under 90 cents per mile, right? I would have really liked it if at least the city council's rule of 140 went through until January. I really wanted to see what that would do to the market. I would have loved to have been proven wrong, right? If 140 doesn't have any negative impact on the market, passengers are happy, drivers are happy, Uber and Lyft are gone, Rides is in there doing everything. I wanted to see what that world looks like, and we're not going to get it. I want it to be proven wrong because I honestly believe that even at the 127, all right. So here's what I think would be a perfect scenario. I think the perfect scenario would be Uber and Lyft are kicked out. Rides, or even, they can stay, right? They can stay. Because Rides pays 100%, if Rides had to pay drivers the $1.40 and it was at a price that customers were okay with because they don't take a large percentage from drivers, I think that would have been the best scenario, right? Drivers get most of the pay. They pay their subscription fee to Rides. That's how Rides make their money. You pay like $100, $200, depending on your market per month. Then you go out there and you drive, right? So you keep 100% of what you make. I think that's a great model. Fantastic model. But like I said earlier, Rides is available in Charleston. And I do have a picture of the rate card. Let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna show you how much I make in I would make in Charleston, right? I have an account, I signed up with them, but I never took a ride, and I'm gonna show you why I never took a ride. YT rides. All right, so here it is. This is the rate card. It says each fare is detailed on how we calculate the price of your trip and the money is distributed. So this is for Charleston. You can see it's right here. It says Charleston. I'm online. It says the standard and you have extra. But for standard, which is the kind of car I have, 4 seats, which would be front, 3 in the back. The base price is $3, which is pretty much what Uber and Lyft does here. The prices don't really get below $3 here. And then the price per mile is 55 cents. That's not good. That's not good. I averaged like $1.40 per mile between Uber and Lyft. And of course, that has bonuses and things like that. But this doesn't have bonuses, right? And then you have the price per minute, which is 25 cents. What's bothering me about this, and I've kind of been encouraged to go and talk to the equivalent of the district manager for rides, right? They kind of have like regions, and the managers are able to set their rates and whatever based off of those regions. Because this company makes money off of subscriptions, I think that the person in charge believes that the best thing to do is to make prices as low as possible in order to grow your base, right? And I can understand the straightforward logic of that, but I think it's wrong. I think that the best thing that they could do is at least, right, charge as much per mile that Uber and Lyft is doing, right? Or a little less, right? If Uber and Lyft is taking 40, 50, 60, 70% of the fare, that gives rides a ton of wiggle room to increase how much they pay drivers per mile while also saving money for the passengers. Now, Rides doesn't do surge pricing. They have something called like perks, and it's all, to me, all it is tipping before you get the ride, right? That's all a perk is to me, and that's if they choose to do so. So they don't have surge pricing. So they need to convince drivers to convert their passengers to a new platform. They're kind of doing it backwards. They're kind of like, all right, let's keep fares low. Let's discourage drivers from even wanting to drive with us so that passengers will want to drive with us. But if you don't have the drivers, it doesn't matter, right? Their marketing isn't that great. They're not. I don't think they're doing a good job. And I think that the ideal person to market to is someone who routinely takes rideshare, right? And the best person for you to work with to market your product is going to be the person who's picking the passenger up. So I think that there is a lot of room to increase this price per mile. I know this price differs in different regions. Someone showed me in Columbus, Ohio, that they're getting paid like 85 cents per mile, which is fine, right? That's a much better place to start than 55 cents. I think that they should. I don't think I don't think drivers will want to use. Well, they could. All right, so I think Rides has an opportunity to shine under normal circumstances, right? When it's not busy in a particular city, when there's not a lot of surges, when passengers are just looking for the cheapest way home and drivers are looking for the max amount of money, right? If on a Tuesday, which is the slowest day in my market, Tuesday at 12 p.m. when it's dead, there's no surging, it's just slow. That would be a time where I'd want to hop on Rides, right? If I get a 10-minute, if I compared a 10-minute drive on Uber versus a 10-minute drive on Rides, and Rides matches their price, right? So Uber is charging the passenger $30. Rides could even charge $25, right? $20. But because the driver's getting 100% of that, it works out better for the passenger and for the driver. Now I can understand where drivers will want to drive with Uber and Lyft when it's surging, then that's okay. If Rides chooses to win, like on average, it'll be better, right? So yes, passengers might want to use Rides more when it's surging, but drivers will want to use it less. So there's a teeter totter here that has to be played. And I think that in my market, it's being played incorrectly. So I think I'm gonna reach out to the region, and I'm gonna suggest what I just told you guys. Like, hey, at least pay as much per mile that Uber and Lyft is charging passengers, and you'll get more drivers for the day to day. In fact, on Friday and Saturday in my market, it's usually a lot of tourists that are going out. The college students too, but the college students aren't here right now. So it's not in Ride's best interest to convert tourists because they're only going to use Rides while they're in that city unless they have Rides back in their city, which very unlikely, right? Rides is not available in most major cities. They want the everyday, the person who lives in the city, who 5 times out of the week needs a ride. And with Rides, you can even pick like current drivers. Like you can have a favorite driver. You can get rides with the driver you want, unlike Uber and Lyft. I think that they have a lot of things that can work very well for them. And I just think that with 55 cents per mile, they're just shooting themselves in the foot. So there were a lot of screenshots, especially on Twitter, about rides in Minneapolis. And we'll go through a couple of them. So this one was shared directly with me with Jeffrey White. Jeffrey White. The rides spelling is throwing me off. Jeffrey White. He says, here my trip with rides this morning in Austin, Texas. Not bad. Little over 13 miles for $23 and $7 tip on top. Total of $30 with rate cards proposed in Minneapolis. Rides would do well. Uber and Lyft will likely be higher with their rate since Rides doesn't have a take rate, right? So everything I just said, I pretty much agree with him with what he's saying here. So you say the fare was $23.15, no perk. Insurance safety surcharge was $2.53. So they do provide you with commercial insurance. And I like that we can see exactly how much it is, unlike Uber and Lyft. And a lot of you might be thinking, but you can see it with Uber and Lyft. You can't. It just says external fees, for example, insurance and other things. There are other things involved there, and they don't specifically show you the insurance safety surcharge. So I like that it shows it here. Got his tip, $7. Credit card processing fee was $2.08, and the passenger paid $34.77. Right? If you take the tip out of that, it's not that much different from the $23. So the driver pay was $30.15. So it's not 100%. It's not. It's probably like 100% of like the rate per mile per minute, but it's not 100% if they're taking credit card processing out of it, which that's fine. I get it. Or insurance safety surcharge. But then I really want to know what that $100 is for, or $200 that you have to pay monthly for. I still think it's a better deal than Uber and Lyft. So yeah. I think it has some ways of winning. I wish he shared his rate card for me. Even I live in Charleston, and about 2 to 3 hours away in Columbia, someone else shared their rate card for rides, and their rate card is 85 cents. So I don't understand why it's 55 cents here. That's actually really, really bad. He says that this is a person I've driven many times. They know me, they know my car, they know how I drive safely and who feels comfortable with me. They know I've been drug tested. This is how rides can be successful. Leverage what they do that others won't. It's better for riders too. But they got to pay drivers more in my market. I don't know what his rate card is here. I can't just figure, because the rate card has miles and time. I can't just divide the amount. I have to know what they are separately, and I'll ask him. I'm gonna ask him right now. He probably won't respond in time. Do you mind sharing your rate card? This is probably gonna be the wrong account. It's fine. Let's see what else we can find. Or let's see what rides Minneapolis. We'll go to news articles. Let's see if we can get something that's a little more recent. So this is from 2 days ago. Says there's a new option in town as Uber and Lyft stay locked in a rideshare showdown. Both companies are threatening to leave Minneapolis by June 1st, which isn't going to happen. On Wednesday, Rides joined My Wheels as one of Minneapolis' first newly licensed rideshare companies, aside from Uber and Lyft. I love that Rides lets us keep 100% of the money. That's just one reason why Bover signed up to drive for rides. I'm glad to see that somebody's standing up for us because it's much needed, he said. Again, I really want to double down on the fact that don't get too attached just because you can keep 100% of it. In my city, keeping 100% from rides is less money than the 40, 50, 60% from Uber and Lyft. You see what I'm saying? Like the percentage isn't the only thing that matters, right? What matters is actually how much money you take home. I know some people feel slighted, they feel dirty when they hear about those percentages, but you got to do the math, right? In my city, 100% of 55 cents per mile isn't better than 40% of a dollar 40 per mile or something, you know. It's just it's not everything that you need in order for it to work. So understand that. I'm glad to see that somebody's standing up for us because it's much needed. Wednesday was the first day of service for the app as they started onboarding drivers. We went live today with the first handful of drivers here and sent them out into the real world, and they're ready for trips and everything. Wright says that the trick is balancing the number of riders and drivers they roll out. We'll be onboarding for the next week ongoing, and we're prepared to onboard up to 1,000 drivers over the next week, as long as we have that many actually come through the system, Wright said. Sergio from the Rideshare guy has been following the rideshare rules across the country. These two companies are not going to be able to scale up to the level that Uber and Lyft, but in case they leave, at least you know the consumer has some choices. So with Uber and Lyft staying, it is going to be harder for. This is my first time thinking about it, and I just kind of had a thought. So let's roll through this first, and then I'll revisit my thought. These two companies aren't going to be able to scale up. Sergio says eyes across the country are on Minnesota Rideshare Showdown. This is definitely ground zero because if Uber and Lyft, play softball here and agree to a lot of the demands, it's going to be duplicated in major cities. That's exactly what I said earlier, right? You might not live here in Minneapolis. You might not live in Minnesota. You might be thinking this has nothing to do with me, but it might. This is a precedent that can grow. When it comes to predicting what will happen next, I gotta ask him how he pronounces his last name. Sergio says he isn't sure. My crystal ball is shattered. He said this one, so many ways back and forth. WCCO checked a couple of destination and rides seem to be a cheaper option by a few bucks, but it may be a longer wait while it gets drivers up to speed. I also want to point out that the ride CEO said that they're charging closer to like 80 cents per mile right now and not the $1.40 that they thought they were gonna have to do. So even on social media, as you're seeing that yes, rides is cheaper than Uber and Lyft for passengers, that doesn't mean like they'll be able to withstand what will happen come January. And they might, and I want them to, but be aware that they're still paying not that great. It's just that drivers keep more of the fares. So in this scenario, it works. In my market, it's not working because they're paying 30 cents less than what they're paying here. So lawmakers have just days until the session ends Monday to come up with a compromise to keep Uber and Lyft from leaving the state, which, they were successful in that on Saturday. So yeah, so let me know what you guys think. I would love some more alternatives to Uber and Lyft. I love these different models that can appear as a result, but they have to make sense, right? They can't just look good on paper. They have to make financial sense. Let me see if I can pull up the comments, see what you guys are saying, check in with you guys. Nothing wants to work today, guys. Hold on, let me get this chat going. All right, so Queen Brown says hi. Hello. She runs a very good podcast over on Twitter Spaces. You guys should definitely go and check it out. It's called the Drivers Coast to Coast podcast. I enjoy listening to it. I was in there last night. There's some good stories in there. One of the drivers got deactivated and he shares a story. I'll probably end up at the end of this live stream. I'll share the link with you guys. Mike B says, let me see if I can zoom in a little more for you guys. Cannot. It won't let me. There we go. All right, here we go. Mike B, I want to know what I want to know is, say you get a ride and you arrive and you wait for the passenger and it says you're paid extra to wait, but it's always the upfront fare. So how am I getting paid extra? That's a good question. That's actually a really good question. That's a good point. I'm going to start paying more attention to it, and I'm going to start raising some more awareness to it. So we'll see how that's going. But that is a very good point. They do that both on Uber and Lyft. I'm going to start the next time I get a ride. I'm going to look at what the upfront fare says. And let's say it's a ride and this person takes 5 minutes. I'm going to then see if the upfront fare was changed later. It probably won't be. But I think you're onto something. I think that's something worth looking into. Tom Kent says that's 100% right opinion. You got to be more specific. I do appreciate whatever it is you think is 100% right opinion. I don't even know what you're talking about. And Steph says, yo, wait, what, WTF? It's not going into effect until next year. Yeah, it's not going into effect until January. I don't know why. I don't know why. you know, honestly, I feel like the council, they kind of this. I'm so torn, right? I don't support what the council was pushing for, but I think they got steamrolled by the state. For sure, got steamrolled by the state. Tomcat says they should reduce investment costs for developing unmanned vehicle. Costs for developing unmanned. They should reduce investment costs. Um, I, uh, I'm not going to talk about what should or shouldn't happen, but I will say that there is a bigger threat to Uber and Lyft if Tesla is successful with their self-driving vehicles, right? And success can take different forms. Success, they don't actually have to be 100% successful in hurting drivers, right? Financially speaking. If they can get a couple of cars on the road and people are willing to take those couple of cars on the road, that will decrease demand overall, which decreases surges, yada, yada, yada. So I think that unfortunately, with Tesla announcing their robotaxis, that's supposed to be like announced in August, I think more companies are going to start doubling down on trying to get to the unmanned vehicle race, or at least try to partner with Tesla in some way, shape, or form. I can see Uber partnering with Tesla and having their cars available through the app, but Tesla likes to do everything themselves. I don't see Tesla partnering with anyone, but it is something to watch, right? Even if you don't think it'll happen, if it does happen and you weren't prepared for it financially, it's gonna hurt and it's gonna suck. And I want you guys to be pessimist when it comes to your money, right? When it comes to things that can affect your money, like assume the worst and hope for the best. That's what I try to do, right? I try to always hope for the best, but I try to make sure I'm prepared for the worst if it happens, especially financially. My B says, how do you calculate your per mile? Do you not include time? My per mile is it's based off of my spreadsheet. It's based off of online time right now. I want to, well, miles, right? We're talking about miles first. My miles is based off of my odometer, right? Before I start driving, I go in my car, I pull up my spreadsheet, I put in what it says in my odometer, I go and I drive to my first passenger, and then I put in what's in my odometer again. Now that's personal miles. I know it feels unfair that it should be considered personal miles, but according to the IRS, unless you do significant accounting in your home, and your home is considered business, that's the only time you can start your business mileage from home. Now I could do that because I have my YouTube studio, right? This room is business space. But just to be on the safe side, I don't, right? So that first leg of your trip, that's personal mileage. Now, once you pick up your first passenger until you drop off your last passenger, that's business mileage. And I'm putting in what's actually showing up in my speedometer, not my speedometer, my miles, my odometer, and I'm just putting that in my spreadsheet, right? And then I'm comparing how much money I made that day to the mileage that's in my spreadsheet. So it's what I call, I guess, door to door miles, right? So that's how I calculate how much money I'm making per mile. As far as hours go, I'm using online time. I want to get better and use door to door time, like track my door to door time minus like breaks. Like if I take a 30-minute break, I don't think that should count against my hourly. But I want to track my door to door time. I want to track my online time, and I want to track my active time. I think that for valuing your overall time, door to door time is the best. How much time am I spending outside of my house doing Uber and Lyft? For valuing your market, I think online time is great. Online time versus active time. Like how much time are you spending online versus how much time are you actually with someone in your car, right? But it can be a little weird because someone who has a very low acceptance rate is going to have high online time and low active time, which is going to mess with their numbers, right? Someone who stays busy, keeps moving, has a higher acceptance rate, is going to have an online time that's closer to their active time if they're in a market that has enough passengers, to do things with. But as drivers, right? From me to you, as business owners, treating rideshare as a business, I think that it's important to know what these numbers are so that you can make better decisions, right? You might go out on a Monday and say, all right, my online time was really high, but my active time was really low. Maybe I should make a different decision. Maybe I shouldn't drive on this day. Maybe I should change my hours. It just helps you understand your market a little better, but it's not the end all be all, whether you're tracking door to door, active, or online. But I do think that it is important to know your business numbers. I get a lot of pushback from people. I don't understand the pushback. If you don't want to track your numbers, fine. But trying to convince me that it is better not to track your numbers, you'll never do it. You'll never find the words in the English language that will convince me that not tracking things is better than tracking things, that not knowing things is better than not knowing things. I got into a conversation with a driver in Florida where he's telling me all these things like rideshare is bad here, this, that, and the third. I'm like, show me your numbers, like prove it. And that's not to say I don't believe him, but it is to say that if you know your numbers, you have better ground to stand on to either fix what's wrong or figure something out, right? There is a percentage of the rideshare business that we can't change that is influenced heavily by Uber and Lyft, but there are decisions that we can make to make as much money as we can in the markets that we were given. I strongly believe that. I believe that good strategy in a bad market is better than bad strategy in a bad market. Some people think there's nothing they can do, and I don't agree with it, right? Unless you're the number one driver in your market, there is something you can do to make more money. And the next thing I'm about to say, for some reason, it's controversial, but if you determine that you're the best driver in your market and your strategy is the best and there's nothing you could do to go and make more money and Uber and Lyft is just screwing you over, then you have no choice to either move or get another job. Right? This is not a charity play. If you honestly believe that there is nothing that you can do to make more money, to afford your life, or to save money by cutting your expenses, then something has to change, right? Sure, you can go to government, try to get Uber and Lyft to change in your city, and of course, we've seen it works. Sometimes there's unintended consequences. Sometimes it works, but that you're talking about like a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's a long time. That's a long time to not be making enough money to sustain yourself in hopes that something will happen with what you're currently doing to sustain yourself. So if you honestly believe your market's not good and you believe you're doing the best that your market has to offer, then you need a reality check and you need to consider getting a new job, maybe continually supplementing your new job with Lyft when you drive nights and weekends, or moving to a new market, right? That sounds weird to say, oh, you're a rideshare driver, go move to a new market. People have done this since the beginning of time. People literally travel from the East Coast to the West Coast on a 3 to 6 month journey for opportunities, even though that journey might kill them. We have it a little easier than that. People from different jobs, careers, computer science, nurses, all the time move for work. If you're in a small city where rideshare is available, but it's not enough money, and you want to be a rideshare driver, then you need to move. And it's not, I know saying things is easier than doing things, but that will always be the case. It will always be easier for me to say that you should move than the actual act of moving, right? It could take you 6 months to a year to move, right? You have to come up with the money. You have to figure some things out. Before you even move, you should go to that city and see what the driver requirements are, see what it's like over there. You shouldn't move blind. But when it comes to life, when it comes to finances, if you're not surviving and you believe there's nothing that you can do to have better survivability with Uber and Lyft, something has to change, right? That's very important. John Dobson says, rideshare is what I call it when my wife hangs out with her boyfriend. That's funny, a little dark, but that is funny. Fly with Ty with the Uchiha symbol. I respect it. Curious what people in the rideshare industry think of robotaxi. I have some news articles about the robotaxi. We'll probably get into some of it today, but my full thoughts won't be shared until probably August when Tesla has their thing. But I have shared some of my thoughts as far as self-driving cars go, and here's the leading thought right now, right? Robotaxis don't have to be successful. They don't, to harm drivers, right? That's the full sentence. Robotaxis don't have to be successful to harm current rideshare drivers. CEOs of companies who think robotaxis can replace rideshare drivers are the real threat to rideshare drivers, right? Whether it's successful or not is kind of irrelevant, unless the government shuts it down like widespread. But there's Waymos in Arizona, right, that are picking up passengers and dropping them off for money. There are other companies testing things as well. So to me, I think self-driving cars is an inevitability. It's just a matter of when, right? Unless the government shuts it down, it's just a matter of when. Statistically speaking, self-driving cars are safer, right? They're dumber for sure, but they're safer overall. They have their mistakes, but these systems learn, right? You go back and you look at the first time self-driving cars were introduced, it probably looks significantly different from what we have now, right? Like there's a bunch of videos. Tesla just allowed drivers to have access to full self-driving. And yes, there are going to be mistakes. Those videos are going to surface. They're going to be prominent on social media. But stat for stat, it's still safer in a self-driving car than it is with a human. It might take a while for human sentiment to catch up to that, but just I don't know. Like all of us are varying ages, but just think back to the thing. Like think back to when cell phones came up. There were probably people who like this is never gonna catch on. It needs to be charged and it needs a battery. You know, it's like there's different inventions that have came out, and when they did come out, like the seatbelt, a lot of people were saying seatbelts were stupid, and now it's like if you don't wear one, you're stupid. So it's we we want to be careful and not ignore things that could have an impact on our finances, right? Even if it doesn't work out, right? You should be paying attention to these robo taxis, especially if you live in a city where they exist, like Arizona. I think they were in California. I'm not sure if they are anymore, but you need to be paying attention to these things. And you know what you should do if you live in a city where this is an option? Go and take one. Go and take a ride. I bet it will influence you in one shape or form, and it'll give you an idea of like whether you should feel like this is something you should worry about or not. I'm looking forward to taking a self-driving car. I don't have access to that here, but also keep in mind that with Tesla's robotaxis, people who have Teslas will be able to just turn their Tesla on, have their Tesla go do rideshare for them while they're at home doing whatever they want, and then when they want their car back, they just turn it back off, right? People probably aren't going to do that. Not a lot of people. So there will be people who will start a business with that. Let me just go out and buy as many Teslas as I can, turn on self-driving and make it work for me, right? It might not make financial sense, at least to me, not right now, but people might do it, right? And it's no different from people who buy multiple cars for themselves. If you can buy multiple cars, drive one yourself, and then make the others drive for you, make money, people are going to do that. And then on top of that, Tesla has already said that they are going to put their own cars on the market. And I think that the difference with me doing it myself versus Tesla, I believe Tesla can create a car that's specifically just for robotaxi, right? They can say, let's make this cheap car, make it for robotaxi, put a bunch of these on the road. And that's what I think their plan will be. And we'll find out more in August, but it's moving faster than we thought it would. Even if Uber and Lyft are unsuccessful with self-driving cars, Tesla is a big player. Tesla hasn't really failed in what they do yet. Tesla, like, they have no debt. I hope I didn't just mess up the audio. No, okay. They have no debt. They paid off all of their loans. And so far, when Elon says he's gonna do something, it gets done. Right? It might be unconventional. The media might flame him. He might get a lot of pushback. But I would never bet against Elon. I just wouldn't. Right? I so there you go. That's my overall thought on robotaxis right now. This stuff says it's so clear. I love that. I assume you're talking about my audio or my video, and I appreciate that. I can't wait till I want to upgrade my camera though. Mary Moore says yes. The Lyft app says it pays extra for you to wait, but I never get anything. I think this is a video worth making to bring attention to it. So you guys have me inspired to pay more attention to it. I do record my phone screen whenever I go driving for safety issues and things like that. And maybe if I can find some good examples, I'll put a video together and maybe I'll see what Lyft and Uber say. Queen Brown says yes, Jeffrey at Rides in Austin. Yeah, that's his at Rides ATX is his Twitter handle. Fly with Ty says John Dawson. I think you're right about that. Tesla doesn't play games, so their timeline is wearing thin. Floyd says Mary Moore. It's a drop down menu in your app. You have to click on. To save money, I purchased a vehicle and now use it to traffic shrink. I don't really know. I don't really understand what you're saying. Thanks to Kensington Avenue. I don't even know what that means. 84 cents a mile and 23 cents a minute in Minneapolis. Okay, thanks. I assume that's what you're talking about, Rides? Is that what Rides is paying right now? Or is that the average what drivers have been making with Uber and Lyft? Let me know. Smart Money with Rideshare says dollar base price. Floyd George says smart money with rideshare. That's ridiculous. Smart money with rideshare says XL is $1.85 a mile and 27 cents a minute. I'm assuming. Well, what platforms are we talking about here? Like, give me some clarity about what platforms. Be like, hey, I was talking about rides with 185. I really want some more information on that. 185 for XL. Let me think about that. And that's minimum, right? So that's like depending on what platform we're talking about. I don't think that's too bad. I don't think that's too bad. But I also don't drive XL, and I don't really have a price comparison in my head. So you let me know. Smart money with rideshare, is that, do you find that acceptable? Where would you have preferred it to be? Uh, Give me some more feedback on that number. John Dotson says in Boston it's $2.45 per mile and 72 cents per minute. Are you talking about like black or XL? Because if that's XL prices, I need to move. And I know Boston is one of the top areas for rideshare. Every time I'm looking at how much people are making, Boston's always in that mix. And I do know Boston is also, they're still pushing for some more changes. Like there's something that happened in their legislator like last week that I gotta go and look up. Tim, do I need to remove you from this chat? You talking about some illicit stuff here. All right. I gotta see if I can get this guy out of here. I don't even know. I've never had to remove anyone, but yo, Tim, I'm gonna give you a warning, man. Just chill out. Just chill out, bro. Let's just keep it PG. Okay. Do you offer? Hmm. I'm about to. I don't. You guys are so rude. Yeah, I gotta figure out how to get you guys out of here. You guys are being annoying. I can actually assume where you guys are coming from. And give me a second, guys. I'm gonna get these. I'm gonna boot these guys out of here. Figure out how to get that done. All right. So John and Floyd, uh, the only one, I put you guys in timeout for 24 hours. Let me give you guys a redemption arc here, and then two, your messages are now only viewable by me. So the next time you decide to leave a comment, just know that only I'm going to be able to see it. And if you actually want to participate here, and if you actually want to learn here, if you actually want to have discussions, if you actually want to, watch my content, hopefully make some more video, make some more money, that way, then you're welcome to be here. But not if you're going to be a douche. So that's not going to fly here. Nope. All right. So let me jump back to the comments. Reorganize myself. All right, Queen Brown says nothing going into effect until January 1st because of the elections in November. I hear you. I wish that wasn't the case. I don't want to wait until January to talk about this stuff again. It's so far away and it's so unfair to the drivers, right? Whether I disagree or agree with the pay rate, um, I know last winter was real rough, especially for me. In my city, we make money on tourists, we make money on the college students. In the winter, there are no tourists, there are no college students. So it can get real rough here and it can vary, right? I know places where it snow, you might still be able to make your money, but waiting until January 1st, hopefully they have one fantastic New Year's. We'll see. We'll see. Banksman says all rideshare drivers should move to Minnesota to take advantage of the 0% interest for $15,000 car loans with new legislation there. I saw that. Oh, man. So I don't know if you're joking, but I'm not for debt, right? I'm just I don't support it. But what I will do is I'm gonna pull up some news articles for this. I do think it's important people know this information, right? Because not everyone is gonna agree with my stances on debt. So I don't have an issue with putting that information out there. Car loan. This is an example of well intentioned. Hold on, let me go to news. Zero interest. I'm struggling to find it. Minneapolis zero interest. Maybe it's Minnesota. I know I read it somewhere, so I know what you're talking about. All right, so here it is. How deep is it into this? This is too deep. All right, so yeah, we'll just focus in on here. So it says in addition to the agreement on wages and labor standards, the House Ways and Means Committee passed a last-minute bill on Saturday morning to appropriate $2 million from the Workforce Development Fund to create a 0% interest car loan program for ride-hail drivers. Drivers who have been working for at least a year on ride-hail platforms and have a household income less than $80,000 would be able to borrow $15,000 for regular vehicles and $20,000 for wheelchair accessible vehicles. The bill directs the Department of Employment and Economic Development to award grants to community development financial institutions or similar nonprofit organizations to administer the loans and keep up to 10% for administrative costs. To keep up to 10% for administrator costs. Similar nonprofit organizations to administer the loans and keep up to 10%. Isn't that just like a 10% interest rate? I guess it's a flat. It's not really a monthly charge interest rate. So I guess if you get a loan for $15,000, they're gonna take 10% of that, so 1,500. So that's not interest. It is a kind of flat fee, and whatever. That makes sense. But I'm not. I think this is great for people who want to use debt for rideshare, but I don't think people should be using debt for rideshare. I say that as a person who has in the past and who will never do that ever again. I didn't get my car for rideshare. I got a car using debt because I needed one, right? My Audi was going bad. Took it to the dealership. They showed me I had no plans of even getting a car that day, but they showed me a Volkswagen Jetta 2017. This was in 2019, before the pandemic, before I started driving Uber and Lyft. My Audi A4 was going bad, and I fell into this that mental state of, man, it's gonna cost me more than my car payment to fix this car. I might as well get a new car. That's what my thought process is, or was. It's not like that anymore. And the deal was sweet though. I took out a loan for about 13 grand. I got a 2017 Volkswagen Jetta in 2019 with 500 miles on it for 13 grand. It was a fantastic deal. It was before all the prices were going to go up for because of COVID, and it was because this car was a runner. It was a car that dealerships would give to people who were dropping their cars off but needed a car to go about their day. And the dealership I got it from, historically, uh, people who go there don't buy used cars. They go there with the intention of buying brand new cars. So the fact that it was a used car, it was sitting there for months. They kept chopping the price down, and then I showed up, and I got it. Right, and it's been a great car. It's made me over $100,000 over the course of 3 years that I've had it, and I paid it off. I paid it off in December, and that was intentional. Right, I started putting extra money towards it. So I'm not a fan of debt, even if it's at 0%. And that's because the reason I'm debt averse is because I've realized that when I review my decisions, when I review my life, when I review my financial history, anytime I've taken out debt, there's been something associated with it that hasn't gone like positively for me. And then scenarios where I choose not to use debt to do something, I've been rewarded financially speaking, right? So yes, there's no interest here, and interest isn't even, as far as why I believe people shouldn't go into debt. It's not about just the interest. Interest is very low on my reasons, my talking points for why you shouldn't go into debt. You can get this car loan, you still have a car payment, right? You might not be getting interest on it, but you still have a car payment. If winter comes and rideshare sucks in your city, you still have a car payment, right? You see what I'm getting at? If you can't afford your car payment, they will still come and take this despite the interest. So, and there's other things that could happen, right? Uber and Lyft could leave your city. Uber and Lyft could make changes to the platform that causes you to make less money. Like they do away with extra comfort. They do away with in my city they used to have Lyft Black Excel. They don't have that anymore. If I went out and got a 0% interest loan for a car that qualified for that to make money in that space, and then Uber and Lyft take that space away, I'm gonna be making less money with the same amount of car loan that I had before. I could get sick. I, I promise, man. Like I've gone through some things I wasn't like. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm currently on the Dave Ramsey plan. The Dave Ramsey plan encourages you to pay off your debt. There are things that have happened to me that, because I paid off most of my debt, right? The only debt I have left is student loans. I qualify for $0 monthly payments. So there's no monthly payment that I have to make. I make the monthly payments I want to make, and I put every single dollar past my bills towards paying off that debt, right? So that we'll start there. I got into an accident, like feels like a month ago, might be 2 months ago. It feels like a while ago, but I got into an accident a couple of weeks ago. And having no car loan, right? The second I got into this accident, and I have video, and I'll make the video and I'll show you guys eventually, but I'm starting to see how my mentality has been shifting because I have less payments to make, right? When I get into the accident, the first thought is, man, this is gonna suck. I don't know how long it's gonna take for me to replace this car or to fix this car. But what I do know is that I've been saving to replace this car, and that this car doesn't have a car loan on it. Even before then, when I thought my engine was going bad, I forgot to screw in my gas cap properly, and my check engine light came on while I was driving. And my first thought was, man, this is gonna be unfortunate, but it's not an emergency. And the reason it's not an emergency is because I don't have a car payment on it, because I have an emergency fund set aside for this. So my main talking point with not getting a loan for cars is because if you have to borrow money to get something, it's because you can't afford it. That's mathematically how it usually goes, right? The only caveat here, as far as debt goes, is I will say that if you need to take out a loan to get a house, that you should do that. The caveat here is because a home, typically speaking, right, appreciates. A car does not. You take out, even if you take out a 0% interest loan on a car, you drive that car, the possibility of you being upside down on that car still exists. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just roll over that negative equity, and it puts themselves in a worse position. And then on top of that, the car that you will buy using debt versus the car that you will buy using your actual money will be different. The reason for that is because people see debt as not their money, you know? So if you could qualify for a $30,000 loan and you had $30,000 sitting in the bank, it's gonna hurt. I might even say it's gonna hurt. It's gonna feel a lot different taking out that 30 grand to buy the car versus you probably wouldn't think twice with the debt. Most people wouldn't. So it changes your initial decision making of what you're willing to get, right? So let's speak theory here. I still haven't revealed whether I fixed my car or whether I got a new car. But let's say I had to get a new car. The car that I would have purchased based off of the money I had in my account, it's like it creates restrictions that are favorable to you, right? With that, you're kind of like I can do whatever I want as long as it's approved. But then you're gonna get a car that you probably don't really need for starters. And then two, I'm gonna say if you are gonna take out debt, because I know not everyone wants to live the life I live, and I want to help guide everyone, even those who don't agree with me. If you are gonna take out debt, get a used car. Just set a budget before you know how much you're even gonna qualify for, because even at 0%, you still have to pay this back, right? Now, if you're thinking about not listening to me at all, and you want to go to Minnesota and try to qualify for one of this 0% interest because you were going to do this regardless, do what you got to do. Just know I warned you, and just know that you shouldn't. It says drivers who've been working for at least a year on ride hailing. All right, so we read that already. I will say so. I shout outs to the government over there for having this. It's a good look, right? This is a good look, right? They're well intentioned. Um, I'm just concerned that people will do this because they can and not because they have to. And it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna be a great time for those people. But this is a well-intended move by the government. So I'm happy that it's well-intended. I don't think you should resort to this. I think you should be stacking your money. If you think something is wrong with your car, typically, if you're listening to your car and you're paying attention to it and you're performing regular maintenance on it, you'll know when something is wrong. And usually, if something is wrong, you have time before it's completely wrong. So you should start saving. And I'm actually working on a system where I'm gonna give you guys like actual steps of what you should do at what point in your rideshare like time span. Like step one might be make a budget. You guys need to be making budgets. Step two is going to be save up $2,500 as your emergency fund to make that cover unexpected like car related things. And if you get into an accident with Uber and Lyft, their deductible is 2,500. So at least you'll have that deductible to start on whatever work is required of you when it's time to do that. So I'm going to build out those steps. I'll obviously make a video and I'll share it with you guys. But I want to give you guys some more direction financially, especially if you're operating without one. I found growing up financially in my 20s that the plan that I was using financially wasn't working. And if you keep using your plan and it's not working, then it's gonna suck. It's really gonna suck because the alternative to not having money is being poor. And I don't want that for anyone. I don't want that for any of you. But good point. Glad you pointed out the 0% interest thing, so you could give me some talking points on it. Oh dang, I didn't block Tim. Let me go ahead and do that. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Hope I didn't block the wrong people. Let me see. Give me a second. But yes, I am gonna have to get a moderator. Got message restricted. Timmy. Okay, here we go. So Timmy, you got a 24-hour on you, and then you're the only person that will be able to see your messages will be me. So if you ever feel like changing who you are as a human, come find me. We'll talk. I'm a second chance person, but after that second chance, I'm not here for it. All right. Let's try to get this chat back. Okay. He's talking about rides. Okay. So Smart Money with Rideshare was talking about rides earlier with his pay rates. Those are good pay rates, man. Those are really good pay rates. It's really encouraged me to go and talk to whoever my leader is. I need to see what they're saying. My B says, what about per mile? Say you get a $23 ride, 10 miles to pick up in 15 minutes, 10 miles to drop off, 12 minutes. How are you calculating that? Okay. You're asking, like, in the moment when I'm looking at my screen, how am I calculating if this is a good or bad ride? I believe that's the question. I need to make a video where I'm just like screen sharing and talking through my decision making. But generally speaking, with Lyft, I'm using the area filter, and I'm just picking up bonuses on top of that. I will take I because I'm using the 5 mile radius filter with Lyft. I know that the rides aren't going far, and if there are bonuses attached to them, that's great. Typically speaking, I haven't really found the need to micromanage like trip per trip. I will say what I pay more attention to is this taking me out of a busy area, or will I be able to get a ride right after? You know, so I'm not micromanaging into the mileage. I'm not micromanaging into the time unless there's traffic. I try to drive without traffic, and then if I'm sure I can take a ride and get another ride without having to drive too far to pick that ride up, I'm likely to take it. Right? If I'm trying to hit a ride challenge, obviously I just want short rides. I'm not even checking. All I'm checking is this ride short? I'm gonna take it. That's really all I'm checking for. What I found in my market is if I'm downtown Charleston, which is by the water, and I get a 20-minute ride that takes me in any direction, the chances of me getting another ride is high. But if I'm trying to stay downtown Friday, Saturday night, and I know that's where the bonuses are, the chances of me getting another bonus after dropping that 20-minute passenger off is low. So I'm not going to do that on a Friday, Saturday night. I might do it when it's slow, right? If it's at the time of the day where there are no surges, no matter where I go, and I can take a 20-minute ride towards wherever, as long as I get another ride after that, I'm okay. I don't have a set standard policy for how I operate. I like to operate with some flexibility. I don't if I'm driving when it's slow, I lower my expectations. I understand that I can either be out here for 8 hours, take 5 good rides, and make $100. I'll have great mileage per mile, dollars per mile, sure, but where did my time go? You know, a lot of drivers, they don't want to track their time based off of hours, like track their dollars per hour because they're an independent contractor. And I want to talk about that for a second, right? I I don't. This goes back to this whole conversation of me. There are no words you can tell me that having more information isn't better. Like if people say that independent contractors don't track their hourly wages, and that's like W-4 behavior or W-2 behavior, whatever it is, like employee behavior, that's ridiculous, right? People in construction who are independent contractors will price themselves hourly to the people that they're working for. Like you have there's not knowing your hourly rate doesn't automatically make you an employee, and I really want to dispel that for starters, right? For starters, I think all numbers matter. If you are able to have high miles per hour and high dollars per hour, fantastic. But if you're having high miles per hour but low dollars per hour, I would try to fix that, right? Some people will say it doesn't matter. Everything matters, right? Your time matters, your distance matters, and there might be a sliding scale, right? It might be that if you want to make more per hour, you might have to tone down a little bit on your mileage, and you should find what makes you happy. But don't fall into this trap of I'm an independent contractor. I shouldn't care about how much I make per hour. Well, you should know this number, and you should be comparing it to your mile. But I don't. I guess I'm not nitpicking enough about my rides, and I'll try to do a better job of at least thinking through my process when I accept rides, because I don't accept every ride. Right? I average about like an 80-85% acceptance rate, and part of that is because I cherry pick the best times to drive. But even in those time periods, I find that the busier it is and the more money there is to make, I'm declining more rides to make sure I'm making money. But the slower it is, there's less influence I can have over what's happening, and I'm more likely just to take rides if it's slower, as long as they make some form of sense, right? So I expect that on slow days, Monday through Wednesday, I'm gonna make less per mile. I'm gonna make less per hour, but I make up for that on the weekends. So it's a good question. I don't have a good answer because I haven't really thought about it. But what I will try to do is I'll do some screen recordings, and I'll try to talk through my decision making on those screen recordings. And I know that if I put a video like that on my channel, it's not going to do well. So I might make a private version of it, and then I'll just share the link with you guys in a live or something. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Mormont says, thank you. Smart Money says, rides. We went through that. Silver Fox says, I pimped my car on Uber and Lyft. Greenbrow says, get him out of here. He's gone. Smart Money, the rates I mentioned were for rides. On your ride segment, it's not bad rate if it's consistent. There is something to say about consistency. I would say my 55 cents is bad, but on yours, it's pretty good. So I agree with you. Greenbrow says, maybe click on their icon and block. I got to figure it out. I couldn't click on it while it was popped out, so I had to put it back in and then do it. Banksman says, where are your mods? I don't have any mods. I haven't ever had an issue, and I'm definitely gonna uh, figure out who wants to do it. Tristan is solo, no mods yet. Any volunteers? Do you want to be a mod? You can more than. I'll be happy if you want to be a mod. Smart Money with Rideshare says, also when there's blizzards in cold states, it's NFL games. I used to live somewhere where it snows, and I don't really want to live somewhere where it snows, but I do know that if you guys look on Solo, which is an app that tells you how much drivers are making in different markets, I know when there's a snowstorm based off of certain cities that are just popping up out of nowhere. Like Philadelphia will be in like the top three, and if someone will make like $3,000 in 1 week, I would love to at least make a video where I could do that. When I'm debt free, what I want to do is I want to go to different cities and try to drive there despite whatever requirements I might need, and just make videos about that city, how much I made driving for 1 week in Philadelphia or something like that. Yeah, I would love to go do that for a blizzard. Surges all day. Yup. Trayvon says, "Did you ever drive anybody famous?" Gary Busey once. Okay, you're gone. I wonder if these trolls are coming from another another YouTuber. See, now I got to pop it back in order to get this going. I am a mod on. Make me a mod. Okay, I got you. I still gotta pop it in. Give me a second. Close that. One of these people asking to be a mod. I don't think you're sincere. Oliver, I appreciate you at the moment, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait before I make you a mod. I can I'll probably ask my wife to start. But we'll see. I haven't seen you before, Oliver, so I'm not gonna just jump up and make you a mod. And your last name is sus. It's very suspicious. So but I don't know, you behave yourself here long enough, continue participating, and then I'll consider it. Silver Fox is always here, but I'm also, if you want to be a mod, you can speak up and become one. But I'm not going to. I feel like I don't know. It's such a weird position to be. I don't know. I'll have to sleep on it. Actually, your last name. Okay. Well, all right. Give me a week to think about it. I'm not gonna do it today, but if all is well and you're back here next week, I'll put heavy consideration into it. Okay. So let me see what else I have lined up. All right. So this one is from Business Insider. It's a little bit of an old one. You guys might have seen it, but it's about a Cleveland driver who made $109,000 in 2023, but took home only 17,000 shares. And he shares the three reasons why he. I'm gonna read that again. A Cleveland Uber driver who made $109,000 in 2023, but took home only 17,000, shares the three reasons he can't quit ride hailing. I continue to run into a brick wall. So let's. What I like to do with these stories is I like to go through them, see what this person is saying, and see if there is any advice that I can give to them, because this situation could be represented in others. Maybe not $109,000. Maybe, right? Because Uber and Lyft takes such a high percentage where if you make $60,000 to $70,000, you might have made $109,000, but after all the fees and whatever, it knocks you down. So there might be people out there who see this, feel similar, and hopefully my thoughts on the matter can help open up the perspective on it. So George, a full-time Uber driver in Cleveland, wants to quit his ride-hailing gig, but for now, he feels like he has no choice but to keep driving. I'm going to let you guys know I too want to quit being a rideshare driver. I don't want to be a long-term rideshare driver. So I resonate with this, but I'm taking steps to put myself in a position to where I no longer need to be a rideshare driver. That's what I want for you guys too. If you don't want to be a long-term rideshare drivers, I don't think people should be long-term rideshare drivers. However, even if you want to be a long-term rideshare driver, the concepts that I'm pushing can still benefit you, so that you can insulate yourself from any negativity that Uber and Lyft might cause to you, right? Even if you want to do private rides, right? Go out and get your proper licensing, your proper insurance, and you want to be a private driver, which I consider as rideshare as well moving forward. That's fine too, but I think that there is a smart way to do it and a bad way to do it. So I'm trying to set up my life in a way that I can do whatever I want, even if it's not rideshare. And I want that for you too. So I want you to do whatever you want, financially speaking, even if it is rideshare. So I just want to take you guys on that path with me. The 40-year-old who has been driving for Uber since 2017 was once quite satisfied with his ride hailing income, he told Business Insider via email, but his feelings have changed considerably in recent years. He says, I used to sing the praises of Uber and recommend doing Uber to people looking for a business opportunity and one where decent income can be made, but no longer. George said his identity is known to BI, but he asked to use a pseudonym for fear of his professional repercussions. Last year, George made more than $109,000 in gross earnings as an Uber driver, according to documents viewed by Business Insider. But after Uber's commission, car maintenance, gas, and miscellaneous driving expenses were accounted for, he took home roughly $17,000, about 16% of his gross earnings in 2021. He took home about 19% of his gross earnings. So I'm going to say right off the bat, this is misleading. If you've been a rideshare driver for more than one tax season, you know that we get a lot of money taken off of our taxable income based off how many miles we drive, right? I think this year for every mile we drive, we get 67 cents back. And for example, I average about 20 cents per mile in expenses, sometimes a little less, depending on what's going on, tires and things like that. But 20 cents in expenses, right, per mile. So if I'm getting 67 cents in tax write offs, that means I'm pocketing 47 cents every single mile with tax free money that isn't going to show up here, right? So that needs to be considered. And Business Insider constantly puts out articles where they're not considering that because they're not drivers, or maybe they know and they like the overzealous headlines. But let's keep reading. George said he drove between 45 and 55 hours in a typical week and estimated that after expenses like gas and maintenance, he earned about $17 an hour in 2023, excluding depreciation and insurance costs. Okay. I, and this is the next problem that I have with a lot of drivers that I'm talking to, especially on Twitter, right? And this is not to say that what they say isn't right or isn't accurate or I don't believe them. It's that I wish drivers had better accounting of their numbers to prove it. You know, he says he estimates that after expenses like gas and maintenance, he earned about $17 an hour. Well, you shouldn't be estimating. You should know for a fact how much money you're making. Like, what's the purpose of estimating here? You know, we don't estimate our bills. We have actual bills to pay. We shouldn't be estimating our money. He says, now I'd have to drive around 10 to 12 hours per day, 6 days a week if I wanted to make a large sum like I was able to years ago. By working 30 to 40 hours a week. I agree with this sentiment. It has become more difficult to make the same amount of money with the same amount of effort. But because I've increased my effort, I am doing better than I was in previous years. But we're, I'm about to head into my slower season, so we'll see what that looks like. He recalled one particularly profitable week in 2022 when he estimated he'd earn roughly $40 an hour after expenses. He recalled one particularly profitable week. So I will say that even I have weeks that are very, very good during certain times of the year. And then weeks where I'm averaging like $20, $25 an hour just because it's just slow. This is what it is. And if you want to make money, you have to grind it out. But I will say that if I had the knowledge I have today on my market and on rideshare, when I started Uber and Lyft during the middle of the pandemic, I'd make more money. My first shift, and I want to make a video where I go and review my first shift. I made like $15 an hour during the pandemic, during a time where it was like if you turn your app on, it would never shut up until you turned it off. That's how busy it was in my city. But because I didn't know what I know now, I didn't make as much money. So, man, I would have killed it. I wish I was better with my money back then too. I wish. I'd be out of debt already. Honestly, I'd be out of debt already. George is one of the several Uber and Lyft drivers who have told Business Insider their ride hailing gigs are less profitable than they used to be. They've accused ride hailing giants of taking a large cut of rider fares and said increased driver competition and high vehicle expenses haven't helped matters. These frustrations have led to drivers' protests and calls for higher guaranteed pay, with a slow showdown in Minneapolis among the most recent escalations and tensions, which we just saw has been resolved for now. The average Uber driver's earnings before expenses declined from $29 an hour in 2022 to $25 an hour in 2023, a study from Gridwise, a data analytic company and app that helps drivers track their earnings, found. Let's check out what Gridwise is saying. Somewhere. Let's try that again. They're linking to themselves? Come on. All right, we'll read this article after. We'll go back here. A study commissioned by the state of Minnesota and released in March found that in 2022, drivers in the Twin Cities metro area earned less than $14 an hour after expenses. It's really bad. In February, an Uber representative told Business Insider that the vast majority of drivers are satisfied and that as of last quarter, drivers in the US were making about $33 per utilized hour. I don't know what just happened here. Okay. It keeps doing that. Why does it? Oh, come on. Okay. In February, an Uber representative told Business Insider that the vast majority of drivers are satisfied and that as of last quarter, drivers in the US were making about $33 per utilized hour. I don't like that the Uber and Lyft have shifted to active time and online hours in order to talk about these things because sure, you can make $33 for active hour or utilized hour, but if if there's not enough passengers for you to stay busy, then all of that is irrelevant, right? If just for extreme example purposes, if you take one ride all day, even though you've been online all day and you made $33 with that one ride, sure, that's $33 per hour. But if you work 10 hours, that's $3.30 per hour, which ties into what I've been saying that drivers should know their numbers and don't think that understanding your hourly rate makes you less of an independent contractor because that's not true. Second, George said he has had bad hip that will eventually require hip replacement surgery, given that a 10-minute shower can leave him in excruciating pain. He said any job that required standing for long periods wouldn't work. Okay, so it sounds like Uber and Lyft has some health benefits for him. Physical limitations can make it much harder for people to land a suitable job. In 2023, about 44% of men and women between the ages 25 and 54 with a disability had a job, compared to roughly 83% of people without a disability, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Third, George said his roommate has health issues that make them unable to drive. George said ride hailing provided him with the flexibility to transport his roommate to doctor appointments and to and from their workplace. That's cool of him. But if you are, this is going to sound as if I'm lacking emotion, but if you can't help yourself, you can't help someone else if you're not helping yourself, right? I wouldn't work a job that is in decline because it gives me flexibility to take my roommate to doctor appointments. That kind of just sounds like an added benefit, and it's nice that he's doing this. Don't get me wrong, but I would not stick around with Uber and Lyft for this reason. Right now, if it was someone closer to me, my wife or something like that, I'd be more on board with it. But I wouldn't let this weigh into my factor of when can I leave Uber and Lyft. I wouldn't. And also, Uber and Lyft aren't the only thing that you can do that has flexibility tied to it. It's just like one of the easier things to do. There are a number of frustrations because I only want to better my life, George said. But because of the situation as it is, I continue to run into a brick wall. George said he saw one way out: becoming a truck driver, an occupation in high demand in some areas of the US. The job could pay more than ride hailing. The median driver makes about $54,000 a year per BLS and would be manageable for his hip. Maybe. I imagine getting in and out would be difficult. If George pursues this job path, he said his roommate is open to figuring out alternative transportation. Good, right? So he's willing to make a change despite his roommate, so fine. But I don't know. I'm not a trucker, but I think he can make more than $54,000 a year in his car and spend less time on the road. But this solution will come with some challenges of its own. For one, George said that the training costs of several $1,000s and that he'd have to undergo several weeks of unpaid training to get commercial driver's license necessary for the job. Yeah, so yes, everything has a roadblock, but Uber and Lyft is a great way to overcome this roadblock. You could do what you have to do for your training, and because of that flexibility that he was saying that he has, he can go and do Uber and Lyft while he's doing his training. I don't really see what the issue is there. He says he's not sure he can afford to forego income that long. See, this conversation, it feels like he's thinking in black and white terms, but it's not. There's like a good mix here. It's like you do what you got to do in the day, and then you do Uber and Lyft at night. Like I don't see the issue specifically with this. I'd have to save money to be able to help my roommate afford things while I was away from home and not earning income. I'd have to save money to be able to help my roommate. This is sounding like his spouse. Why do you have to save money to help your roommate afford things? I don't understand. As all things in life, it's complicated and not just as simple as making the change. I think that yes, everything's, as I said earlier, doing things is always more complicated than saying things, but not doing the things results in nothing happening, you know? So like you just gotta do it. So my advice to this guy would be don't do the thing that you want to do just for money. Right? It sounds like he enjoys driving, he enjoys flexibility. So maybe he wants to be a truck driver. Maybe when he was young, that's what he wanted to do. And if that's the case, that's fine. But what I want for myself and what I want for everyone in this chat I want you to think about that thing that you've always wanted to do. And I want you to set your life up to eventually try and do it, right? For me, I discovered that I want to be a full-time YouTuber, right? I knew that I wanted to be a full-time work from home person because I'm building a family. And when I have kids, I want to be able to spend as much time with them and be as involved as I can. And traditional job doesn't always make that work. And you can make it work with a traditional job, but and there's nothing against it, right? That's just not what I want for me. If that's what you want, that's what works for you, that's fine, right? Some people can't stand to be around their kids for long periods of time, and that's fine, right? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to be there, you know? And I'm using Uber and Lyft as a stepping stone to lower my expenses, paying off my debt. I realized that the fastest way for me to become a full-time YouTuber isn't to blow up on YouTube, right? Blowing up on YouTube isn't the norm. It is normal for people to be doing this for a very long time before they're able to have a full-time job doing this thing to pay all their bills. For me, I realized the fastest way to becoming a full-time YouTuber is to cut my living expenses, right? I've been cutting my living expenses. I've been paying off my debt to lower my bills to where all I really need to make is 1,500 every month in order to afford the lifestyle that I have right now, right? That's because I paid off my car, paid off my credit cards. I don't use debt. I try to limit my spending. I have a budget, and Uber and Lyft give me a great way to make as much money as I'm willing to work, right? Even if Uber and Lyft paid $15 an hour or $20 an hour, I can still mathematically figure out how many hours I need to work per week in order to accomplish my goals. And I can work all the hours that I want, right? With a traditional job, I used to be a salaried employee, I used to be a district manager. I was capped, right? I could work 80 hours a week and I'm getting paid the same as making like doing 40 hours a week. Or even if I went and worked at McDonald's or whatever, where I wouldn't have to, pay expenses for a car, I'm still capped to how much hours I would be allowed to work unless they're giving out crazy amounts of overtime. So Uber and Lyft is a great stepping stone. I don't think that there is a job out there that I can do in a short period of time without training or certification or a degree that will pay me better than Uber and Lyft. But I also understand that based off of the history of pay for Uber and Lyft, based off of what we've seen happening in the news with Uber and Lyft over time, based off of what other drivers who started driving with Uber and Lyft when they were brand new, the pay is decreasing, right? And I'm aware of this, and I've accepted this idea that today is going to be the last best day to make as much money as you can with Uber and Lyft because the trend says that tomorrow they're going to pay you less, right? I'm expecting that this winter is gonna be rough because last winter was rough, and I'm like preparing for that. I'm like, I understand that. I understand that for me, this isn't something I want to do long term, nor is it a good idea to do it long term. But if you want to do it long term, that's fine. I would just put yourself in a financial position to where if one day you wake up and you say, okay, this is no longer what I thought it was, that you have the financial capacity to pivot. Because pivoting financially is difficult when you don't have the war chest to do it, right? It- Accumulating money, changing your habits take time. Stacking up money takes time. And I don't want you guys getting caught with your pants down, which is why I try to tailor my content to be focused on these things. Because I want you guys, my channel is about using rideshare as a stepping stone into something else. Or rideshare, right? If you want to use rideshare as a stepping stone into being a private driver, that's cool. Go do it. But I want you guys to get focused on that thing that you always wanted to do, that thing you always wanted to be, right? Even if it's going to take you 4 years to do it because you got to go to school to get that degree, you got to use Uber and Lyft, right? You lower your expenses, you save up as much as you can with Uber and Lyft, you use that flexibility. You got to start making your way down that aisle as soon as possible, right? It's gonna be hard. It's gonna take time, but figure out what is that thing that you want to do. And if you don't know, that's okay. If you have some things that you think about and you want to go try, that's okay too. My friends used to pretty much categorize me into the wishy-washy type of person because I was always willing to try something. And when it didn't serve me anymore, switch to something else. And I think that's okay for a time period, right? Eventually, you have to figure out what it is you want to do, zone in on it, do it. And if you do it well, it usually helps you transition to something else if you want to do something else, right? Because you would have put yourself in a financial position to be able to switch whenever you want. I want to live a life where money isn't the reason why I don't do something. So that's kind of the overarching goal that I have as far as money goes. And if I want to go and get my pilot's license, I don't want to have to worry about the $10,000 that it's going to cost, or the my inability to make money while I'm pursuing that thing. So I've created a lifestyle where I can do that. And that's what I want for you guys. I want you guys to figure out what it is you want, start making progress towards that. So like if school is your thing, honestly, you should be Uber Diamond or whatever it is that allows you to get a free degree. I might do it. I might do it out of just curiosity. I did study computer science. I didn't finish. I don't think I need traditional school to finish what I want to do. But if I can get it done for free through Uber, I just got to drive a little more often than I would. That's not bad, right? We need to be taking advantage of Uber and Lyft, even if you feel like they're taking advantage of you, right? It's a it can kind of feel parasitic, but you need to put yourself in a position to do what it is you want to do. And if it means you gotta like earn Uber some dollars while you're doing it, or take some trips you don't really want to take in order to get there, that's okay. I feel like a lot of people who are frustrated with what Uber and Lyft is doing, it's because they're in a financial position where they can be easily screwed over. I've watched myself like my anger levels for Uber and Lyft kind of dissipate over time as I needed them less, right? I remember when I got banned by Lyft, right? The passenger said that I locked her in the car and was being sexually suggestive with her, and I had dash cam, and I'm still a Lyft driver, so obviously I proved it wasn't true. But if that were to happen today, right now, it wouldn't feel as much of an emergency, right? When I found out, it was like 3 hours before I was about to hop on a flight to enjoy my vacation in Vegas. And it kind of ruined it because now I'm in Vegas. I'm banned. I don't know why I'm banned yet. And I have I have money that I was planning on spending, but now I don't really want to spend it because I don't know what's gonna happen. Right. And this was before I paid off my car. This was before I was like as deep into the finances that I am now. And if that were to happen today, yeah, I would still be upset, but I wouldn't be as worried, right? I if I was on vacation in Vegas, I'd probably be like, man, I'm gonna get this figured out. I gotta wait for Lyft to respond. All right, I'm gonna go enjoy my time. I know I got money in the bank. I know I have my emergency fund. I know I can figure this out. So, and I want that level of peace for you guys as well. And yeah, that's just pretty much where I want to go with it. I'm gonna check in the comments, see what you guys are saying. I gotta pop this out again. I've also realized this is a little bit of a side, but I realized even with my whole beef with the other YouTubers or whatever, I realized I was putting too much effort into responding to people who aren't receptive to the message, and I need to be um more receptive to people who are receptive to the message. So that's the change I'm trying to make with my content. I'm trying to focus on the people who want to be here, the people who are trying, the people who want to learn, instead of the people who don't. It's just it's hard because I started my YouTube channel with the goal of helping people. It wasn't a rideshare channel when I started. It was just about money. I learned how the stock market works. I learned that everyone can benefit from it, and I wanted to give this information to everyone. And then I was taken aback by the fact that sometimes you have to convince people that there is better for them. And even in that conversation of convincing, when it comes to money, people are quick to think you're a grifter, or they don't believe you for this, or you're lying, or you're making stuff up. And I for a while I felt that in order for me to be effective with what I'm trying to do, I have to figure out how to convince people that I'm not lying. It took me a long time to reach this conclusion, but I realized I just got to be more transparent, right? If I'm as transparent as can be, right? I'm out here showing you guys how much money I make. I'm going through the app, and you guys can see it, and you still don't believe me. I can't help you, right? So I've just decided to be transparent and help those who we're willing to believe. Because if I'm transparent and you don't believe what, like, people say, hey, I'm a liar. I'd be like, okay, be specific. What am I lying about? And what can I do to prove to you that I'm not lying? Like, literally tell me, like, what do you want me to do? I'll do it. And some people, they don't even respond back, because it's never been about the truth or not. It's always been about discrediting. And it's weird. I don't know. It's weird out there, man. I don't know. Am I missing people? Am I still not banning the people? My piece says also the pro air filter move has helped me so much. Start a filter at 9 p.m. Then at 11:58 remove it and start another one. Get it back. Did you get that from me? I do that. I have an alarm set on my phone for like 11:50, because I don't want to do it while I'm on a ride. So I give myself a little bit of leeway. I set it for 11:50 just to use that extra filter. And yes, it has been a fantastic one to use. I should put that in my video. Queen Brown says, might be that's a great tip. I think he got it from me, but I think I said it like not last week, because I didn't do live the week before last. I think he got it from me. But even if he didn't, it's still a very, very, very good tip. All right, so I'm kind of just killing time at this point. It's 4:57. Let me think. Let me see what else I have. Do I want to talk about the yellow Tesla rideshare service? Yeah, you know what? We'll do it. So this topic isn't so much about Tampa's $2 yellow Tesla rideshare service. I haven't really gone through this article. I don't know if it's successful or if it's not working, but I have noticed a trend that either governments, and it's usually governments, or businesses are creating niche like transportation, like to compete with rideshare, which I don't think it'll ever sweep rideshare away, but I do think it'll have an impact on rideshare, right? Every time a customer has an option to do something that isn't rideshare, it's gonna have an impact on rideshare. So this is for Tampa. It says, once lacking in transportation options beyond getting in your own car, downtown Tampa has these days can boast a few. Tourists and locals zip around on rentable e-scooters and bikes. The historic streetcar ferries riders between Ybor City and downtown for free, and a busy pedestrian riverwalk hugs the water's edge. And I've been to Tampa, and I've taken the ferries. They're fantastic, and I don't even see why someone would take rideshare at all, because this exists. So there are things that aren't even car related that do have an impact on rideshare. And for 6 months now, a fleet of 6 bright yellow rideshare Teslas dubbed Dash has been schlepping people around downtown 7 neighborhood. Yes, that once sleepy city center is actually 7 district communities now. Obviously, Tampa's lacking some transit options, said Joe Freeman, the nonprofit that manages the district. Through an agreement with the city. With Dash, he said, we kind of fill that need. Given that some past attempts at short trip transportation has been a swing and miss, like those of free orange bikes intended to be borrowed for quick rides that promptly vanished, how's Dash's debut? According to the data provided by the partnership, nearly 20,000 passengers have taken rides at $2 per person, dinging off to meetings, restaurants, and bars, classes at the University of Tampa, and events at the Performing Arts Center Amelia Arena. So, like 20,000 passengers over the course of 6 months. It's not a lot, but it's a bite. It's a bite out of the rideshare atmosphere for Tampa, which, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't even that great to begin with. Downtown workers who park remotely or come in by bus use Dash to get to the office. Most passengers, 56%, have been downtown residents, plus 17% visitors and 13% workers. More than 40% reported they would have driven cars if not for the Dash option, with an average trip of more than a mile. So some of these passengers aren't even necessarily taking rideshare, but I'm willing to bet that some of these, the 17% visitors, probably are. 6 months and we're super excited, said partnership intern president Sean Drinkard. It's going really well. No surprise, bustling new Water Street with its high rise residents and of what is that? What was that? I don't even know what that sound was. This is where a lot of our combo rides happen, said Antonio Grooms, Dash assistant project managers, such as strangers amicable sharing short rides to the same bar. In all, drivers have logged 40,000 miles. So 6 months, 40,000 miles. I think he said what, 6 cars? Let me see. Yeah, 6 bright yellow rideshare taxis, 40,000 miles, 6 months. Let me pull my calculator out to see what that really looks like. Here we go. So 40,000 miles, and they've been doing it for 6 months. So that's average of 6,666 miles per month across 6 cars. So we'll divide it by 6 again. So each car is doing about 1,000 miles per month. But I'm assuming that the people who are operating these cars aren't responsible for paying for the car or whatever. So I'm curious how much the drivers get paid. Dash, funded through the partnership budget and through fares, works like this: riders download an app, type in where they are, where they want to go, plus payment information. Dash doesn't officially take tips, though that's largely between passenger and driver. The app gives riders walk-in directions to the nearest hub, where wait time averages 5.3 minutes. I don't understand why they wouldn't allow drivers to make tips. It's not like they don't allow drivers to make tips. Apparently, I can't read any more of the story without subscribe. Oh, there we go. Okay. An ad popped up saying I had to subscribe, so I wasn't sure what was happening. It says drivers make $15 an hour with benefits including healthcare and are trained as city ambassadors. Quick question to you guys who are here: would you rather not be responsible for the maintenance of your car or buying a car using someone else's car? Would you be okay with $15 an hour, including healthcare benefits and trained as city ambassadors? I don't really know what that means. Sounds like they're a tour guide. But would you give whatever you're making now with rideshare? Would you give that up to not have to worry about maintenance on your car, not have to buy a car, and to work for this company? I'm curious. I think that I wouldn't do it. I don't think I would do it. We get a lot of where's a good place to get pizzas? Where can I take my kids? Where can I get a drink? And Freeman, and you can be told all about Tampa and the best places to get tacos. Riders have given drivers 4.94 out of 5 ratings on the app. That's pretty good. I will say, if you live in a city where you're frequently picking up tourists, right? I live in a tourist town. Knowing your city is a benefit. It helps you get tips. You don't even have to like do the city yourself. I've driven so much that I know I'll pick people up from a particular restaurant and I'll ask them about the restaurant. Hey, how was the food? How'd you like this? And I'll use that information to regurgitate later to other visitors based off of like general consensus. Like if a passenger says, hey, I want to go out to a bar, but I don't really want to be around tourists, even though I am a tourist. I know which bars to tell them. I know where the spots are. And it's not because I've been to these spots to experience them myself. It's because I'm making sure that I'm talking to my passengers to learn about where they're coming from, why they're coming from there, and where they're going. It helps you get more tips. I pick people up from passengers. I give them a whole rundown on Charleston. I say, hey, now we're in Charleston. Hey, after 10 p.m., you got to make sure you have food because there's no fast food options downtown because the food here is so good that they priced out all fast food competitors, but they don't stay open very late. But if you get caught out too late and you don't have any food, you can get some bad pizza, so especially when I know that people are coming from bigger cities like New York City, because one of my gripes about living in Charleston, being from New York City, is that if I don't get food before 10 p.m., I got to eat gas station food all night, which isn't good. It's not good. It's just sugar. And I don't need sugar. So, uh, knowing more about your city can help you get more tips if your clients are predominantly, not even predominantly, if you have a subset of your clients that are not from where you live. The car's bright yellow wasn't intended to evoke taxi drivers who can point out the choicest food trucks and watering holes, but bolsters the idea. A personal pet peeve of mine is when an Uber driver doesn't know the streets where he's taking me, said Rachel, the partnership director of public space operations and programming. And no, the rideshare won't go outside the downtown district, like to the airport, though drivers get asked a lot. The official neighborhoods in the district are Downtown Core, River Arts, Central Park, Water Street, the Channel District, West Riverfront, and Tampa Heights. The all-electric Tesla seats up to 4 passenger. As happened on occasion, a party can pay the full $8 to have the car to themselves. Shared rides have made up 10% of trips thus far. Not a fan of shared trips, but for $2, who can complain? That's cheaper than most public transportation options like buses and things like that. Dash comes on the heels of the downtown ride service that got so popular that wait times could be unrealistic for work lunches or certain times. Free with door-to-door service instead of hubs, it ran out of funding in 2021. So I guess this is what they were talking about. We ran out of funding. So like, what if you're busy but you're not making money? How does that work? What do you mean you ran out of funding? Dash was designed around the downtowners' hurdles. This project we have seen as extremely sustainable, said Radowek. So I've seen a couple of these in different cities. Some of them are owned by the government, right? And some of them, I've seen this specific car. I don't remember what city it was, but it wasn't Tampa. So this car is being used frequently, and I think some cities are buying into it. I made a video on it once, but it's interesting, right? We should be paying attention to this stuff between robotaxis. If robotaxis takes 10% of rideshare, if things like this start popping up in different cities and it takes 10% of rideshare, that's 20%. There's a lot of different concepts that are coming up that can like take bites out of rideshare in a way that drivers can't recuperate, right? It's different from where if you have a competitor coming where you as a driver can now go and drive for that competitor plus Uber and Lyft, that's fantastic. But that's not what this is. This is you need to go and apply to work here. You need to get this job. You're going to get paid $15 per hour. And sure, you could do this and then Uber and Lyft at night or whatever. Or you could even build your private clientele this way too, if you have the proper paperwork and the proper insurance, right? You can go work for this $15 an hour place and be like, hey, if you need a ride to the airport, I do them on my private time in my licensed business. So there are ways you can market this, but you should be aware of it, right? You should always be aware of it. So this is another example, and this is from New York City's. It says New York City's electric rideshare cars surpassed 2 million trips in March. Right, so this is very similar, except this is by the actually is this a city thing? I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out right now. In the first quarter of 2024, NYC saved some 731,000 gallons of gas thanks to electric rideshare cars. I don't know if that's for this company or if that's just in general due to how many electric cars are in New York City. If you're a curious New York City resident or visitor, you've likely heard of the faint hum of traction motors emanating from electric cars with taxi and limousine commission registration plates. Most Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys, but also some Toyota BZ4XS and Pulsar 2s, among others, these EVs are everywhere in the 5 boroughs on the world's financial and cultural capital. They ferry customers in near silence, leaving no trail of no planet warming fumes. Nearly 25,000 all electric and hybrid Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare cars now ply in New York City, and these drivers are going all guns blazing with usage rates. A lot of words. The New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission, the agency responsible for licensing and regulating yellow taxi cabs for hire vehicles, commuter vans, and paratransit vehicles, announced yesterday that rideshare EV trips surpassed 2 million in March alone. That's double from 1 million trips covered in January. I still don't know if this is encompassing of all platforms, including Uber and Lyft, or if this is just the specific company they're talking about. This comes after the New York City passed its Green Rideshare Initiative, mandating all new for-hire vehicles to be electric from November 2023 onwards. This rule led to a sudden surge in FHV license applications, with New York City TLC's daily intake soaring from 150 to 2,000 applications overnight, a TLC spokesperson told Inside EVs earlier this year. I remember covering this as it was happening. People were lining outside of Tesla, trying to get a Tesla to become a driver in New York City. The way it works is that the TNC limits how many people can become drivers at any given time, right? And then what they did was they said, hey, we're not going to accept any gas cars right now, but if you have an electric car, you can get a TNC plate. And a bunch of people flocked to go and get Teslas, right? So I didn't know to be electric from the 2023 on. I don't know if this is still in effect. That's actually kind of scary. So I think they're kind of saying that the only way to get your TNC license now is if you have an electric car. Let's look into that for a second. Yeah, it's okay. This is kind of wild. I know the Biden administration kind of pushed back when everything had to be electrified for just general car sales, and they need to because the electric market is failing right now. The hybrid market is actually winning. I'm gonna do a different video on that. We'll talk about that later. But this right here is saying that beginning in 2024, 5% of all high volume Uber and Lyft trips will need to be through vehicles that are either zero emission or wheelchair accessible. So the law started 2023 and they're incrementing up to different levels, which is, something I support. When a government is trying something new and you use increments to implement that change, that is, in my opinion, the better way to do it, because you don't want to create too much of a change that can have a negative impact. So I don't think this is good legislation overall, but the fact that they're going to do this incrementally is a W in my book. So he says that the benchmark will rise to 15% in 2025 and 25% in 2026. So they're saying 25% of all trips from Uber and Lyft, trips, not even cars, just trips, need to be electric, zero emission, or wheelchair accessible. In 2027, it will increase to 40%, then rise yearly by 20% points until the end of the decade, when 100% of rides will be under the guidelines. So I'm guessing, what is that, 2030? They're expecting for this to happen. So they have 6 years, and I think that I don't know what the landscape is going to look like in 6 years. And anyone who's watching, do you want to be a driver in 6 years? That's okay if you do, but 6 years, that's a long time. A lot has changed in the last 6 years, and I expect a lot to change again in 6 years. So who knows? Maybe battery tech will be so significantly better. Maybe the electric market would be significantly better. But right now, the electric market, it's being thrashed. It's being completely destroyed in terms of people wanting to go and buy these types of cars. People have been buying hybrids. Toyota's been doing very well while everyone else isn't doing very well. And other companies who skipped out on hybrid technology are going back to making hybrids. So it doesn't mean that this will last forever. Some of it can be as the result of the interest rates for loans on cars, discouraging people to get them. Time will tell. Time will tell for sure. All right, so we're going back to the New York City article. It says, from an emissions perspective, these rules are reaping huge benefits. Since November, monthly EV trips increased fivefold from 362,000 before. That's cool. I guess that's cool. Get the best. That's it. So I mean, from a planetary perspective, there's a lot. Some people say electric cars aren't that great for the environment because of the mining for the batteries. I haven't looked into any of that stuff. I do think that lowering emissions in high densely populated areas, it has to have some benefit to it. But financially speaking, these electric cars are too expensive, and I hate that this is kind of not forcing, but encouraging people to go out, probably take loans out for electric vehicles in order to do Uber and Lyft. And I'm not a huge fan of that. But that's going to be it for today. A little short one today. I have a lot that I want to talk about as it comes with self-driving. Like if you look over here, I have like a bunch of different articles, and I don't think I can do them justice in between now and 6 o'clock. And I really do like you guys being able to go and watch Show Me the Money Club over at the Rideshare guy. But I like Sergio. I think he's relatively balanced in his takes. He's relatively realistic. He's not over the top. He's really good at interviewing people. I really do enjoy when he interviews people. So you guys should definitely hop over there and check them out. And they're going to be talking about Minneapolis today too. I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be in the chat. And I'm going to push back. I like pushing back. But Rideshare guys, one of the channels I really do enjoy. Make sure you guys also check out Drivers Coast to Coast over on Twitter. It's always a fun time. I love hearing the stories. It's different from most of the things that I've seen on YouTube, and I need to convince them to at least start posting the audio to YouTube. I don't see why they're not doing that yet, but it's nice to hear from other drivers about their experiences. They talk about the ride of the week. If something special is happening, they'll talk about that as well. And it's not, they could be talking about something that is negative, and they could be talking about something that is positive, but it's not like, for example, the Rideshare Professor, typically speaking, his videos are negative videos towards Uber and Lyft, and that's fine. If that's his content, that's his content, but it could get tiresome over time. Sometimes having positive perspectives in rideshare can help motivate you, to keep going forward. We are community-driven people, so having different communities that promote different things within the rideshare space, I think, is a benefit. So you guys go check them out over on Twitter and follow me as well. It's Tristan Thomas YT, yeah, like YouTube YT, and come and talk to me over there. Oh, also, I have a website up. It's not 100% finished yet, but if any of you who are watching, you're a supporter and you supported me on Patreon, I have built a website where I'm going to stop using Patreon and you guys can support me directly. Okay, that didn't work. It's called futureridesharemillionaire.com, and it's not done. I've been spending this whole weekend working on it, which is kind of why I didn't drive. But the Patreon process was too clunky. You would have to subscribe to me on Patreon. Then you would have to click the link to see the spreadsheet tracker. And then I would have to approve you to get the spreadsheet tracker. With this, once you create your membership and you sign up, you will be able to download it without interacting with me. So you'll always be able to go here and download it. And I'll make it this way for whenever I put out more things. Like, I'm going to put out the personal budget tracker. I'm going to make a rideshare budget tracker. I'm going to make a rideshare calendar where you can put in like your bonuses. Like you can say, all right, at 7 p.m. there's a $5 hour bonus. I forgot what they even call it. They keep changing the names of these things. And then you put this in your spreadsheet and then it will automatically upload itself to your Google Calendar or whatever calendar you like to use. And then it will remind you that, hey, at 7 p.m., this is this thing that's happening. So I'm making a whole bunch of tools for you guys to use that I use in order to, cherry pick the correct times to drive, the best times to drive. And this is where it will all be. But I'm not finished yet. But you guys get a little sneak peek. So, and I made it myself, 100%. So before I became a YouTuber, I actually dabbled in website creation. I used to want to be a blogger. I've always had, I guess, a decent writing ability. And I used to have a website. So I put this all together myself. And it took some time. I had to relearn a lot of things. I haven't done it in over 10 years. But, I'm glad I have this. And thanks for hanging out with me today. It's going to be fun. I am trying. I've been struggling with organization in my personal life ever since the car accident. I always try to operate near maximum capacity as like what I'm able to do. I get bored if I'm not pushing myself, but it so happened that with the car accident, it became a little overwhelming, and all of the systems that I created and committed to in order to get content out on time, in order to make sure I'm driving while doing YouTube things, it kind of all fell apart. And I'm slowly getting back to a sense of normalcy. So I'm looking forward to posting more often, to getting better videos out to you guys, and just pushing forward, man. I'm looking forward to being debt free. I'm looking forward to someday being done with Uber and Lyft. I'm looking forward to helping people make more money, and I'm excited to be on this journey. I'm excited that I get to share this journey as I'm going through it in real time. And I'm excited that you guys have chosen to be on this journey with me. And I appreciate all of you. And I'll see you guys next week. I'm going to be a little more consistent. Thanks.